Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Alan Russell. I think you just saw the bios of myself and our special guest just a moment ago during that video. We have a very interesting, dynamic, fast-moving discussion. We're going to keep it going and keep it interesting. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Daniel Maranto from the Tecnológico Monterrey. And welcome, Daniel.
Nice meeting you. Nice to be with you here.
And next we have Juan Solano, who is an incredible entrepreneur and consultant who I look forward to spending some more time with and engaging my own business activities here on the border. So this is going to be fast moving and an informal conversation. You all can join and ask questions with the Q&A button. And as we have the moments and ability to answer, we will do so. I want to reach out also and thank the staff, very competent staff, and the leaders of Mexico Now, Sergio Ornelas Sr., and the team he has put together over the years that has been a major contributor to Tecna's success in exposing ourselves and our services to the industry. So today's forum is addressing leisure and business travel in Mexico as related to the challenges that we've got before us. I want to preface this with, from the time we have discussed and laid out the questions that we were going to ask, the world is changing before our very eyes. We may have more challenges where we thought we were kind of on the backside of things, and we may have challenges in front of us. And these two gentlemen, I think, will be able to give us a professional view and eyesight as to what we might expect. So diving right in, and this is for both gentlemen, and I'll ask Daniel to go first in this case.
Sure.
What has been the impact of COVID-19 on the leisure and business tourism sector? And I would say that includes yesterday and looking forward.
Yeah. Thanks, dear Alan, for the question, and thanks for inviting me, and welcome to all the audience here. And that's a very interesting question that you are posing here. And well, we can see, at least from my perspective, that for both leisure, business, travel, well, changes are obviously coming in. We can see, I will focus my answer more on the business sector. And yes, we are reconfiguring now the way we connect. There might be some travels, some trips that may not be necessarily, necessarily to do physically. So given the video conferences and telecommunication facilities that we have now, some of the business trips may be questions at this point. Is it really necessary to take an early flight to Mexico City for a 1-hour meeting, spending 2 or 3 hours just on a one-way trip? So yes, probably for business, we may be thinking about different options. I mean, I'm not saying that businesses will not, we will not longer make business trips, but we may consider only the most essentials, right? Probably for, traveling with the family for leisure, those trips will probably continue, right? As we are all vaccinated. That will be from the starting point, my answer, Alan.
Thank you. Juan, what are your thoughts?
So I think, let me just go, first of all, around some figures, what has been happening, around the impact from the COVID. Clearly, there's a recovery, compared to what happened last year, yet we're not there yet. If we compare the numbers between January and April, of this year of 2021 against those from the same period in 2019, we're still receiving almost half of the international tourists we were receiving in 2019. The spend of international tourism has also gone down by half. Even on a day-to-day, the average spend per tourist has gone down compared to 2019. So people, those even that are traveling, are spending less. They're spending 17% less than they were spending in 2019. And also, and one of the key things also that whenever you're talking about tourism, you're thinking is it international tourism or local tourism? The origin of the tourist. Even local tourism went down, still down by 42%. I'm gonna go and complement Daniel's perspective from a personal tourism perspective, from a leisure tourism perspective. And one analysis that we have performed at EY is, as we call it, the EY Consumer Index. This is an analysis, and these are surveys that we're performing around the globe, many different countries, including Mexico, just to sense how consumers are perceiving the way they were living, the habits they had, how they were consuming, around many different activities. And one of those activities is tourism. And what they're foreseeing is that they're gonna keep on traveling less than before by 42%. So 4 out of 10 consumers around the globe have a perspective that they're gonna keep on lowering down, let's say, or keep on having less leisure activities and tourism activities than they used to have before. And one of the reasons around that is that 1 out of 3 consumers around the world are very much worried around affordability. They don't have the financial capacities they used to have, or they're very much more risk adverse around spending more than they used to spend. 1 out of 3. And that's having an impact, and will have a lasting impact, temporarily lasting impact for some additional months or years around the way they used to travel.
Wow. So let me just augment this a little bit with another question plugged in here. When my colleagues, my staff, and myself try to get on an airplane to go to Mexico City or to Tijuana, Guadalajara, Monterrey, it's packed. I mean, if you can get on, it is a full airplane. So the data points you're giving would lend us to think these airplanes are running 40% lighter than normal. Juan, expand on that. How's that happening, and how's that different than the data point you're expressing?
It's also because you have less flights.
There you go.
So there's an optimization around that. And that has been one of the key things. There's a perception. There are things, and you just mentioning, I took a flight a couple of days ago, and it was packed. As a matter of fact, compared to another flight that I took, for example, in October last year, and it was, I think, the emptiest, or one of the emptiest flights that I've ever taken in my life. And that's the reason. Simply is there's less frequency. Also, another thing that is hindering, or the devil is in the details of the data, is the fact that lots of that tourism that used to happen without flying. So, and happen in many multiple destinations. Right now, there are key destinations that are keep having and receiving the inflows they used to receive in the past, or at least they may be at 80, 90, even 100%, such as Cancun, such as Cabo, but there are many other destinations that are not receiving any longer tourism, either for business trips or for leisure trips. So it's kind of perception, but when you get to the numbers, there has been an impact. The impact remains.
Interesting. Well, I know that in our business, we're in the manufacturing sector. We're going to get into this later about working virtually and how the dynamics are working at headquarters and offices. We don't feel like we can do anything virtually. We are a touch service business. So we have engaged full steam and we're crowding our way onto those airplanes to get to our facilities. But we'll get into that. But Daniel, given the advancements in vaccines and the higher volume of vaccine availability, can we estimate that the recovery of the leisure business trips will have the same behavior? What would be different going forward if everybody's vaccinated and the coronavirus calms, including the Delta? What are we going to see?
Yeah, it will take time. I mean, difficult to say how much time, by the way, but it will take time from my perspective that we get again the confidence of doing either leisure travels or business travels. So yeah, probably in the short term, as Juan was saying, there will be a reduced amount of trips either for business or for leisure, right? But at least probably when we get vaccinated, most of the population, and when we get more confidence that people is safe and that traveling is safe, we'll try to see some recovery. I can tell when, obviously, how much it will take, but my perspective is that yes, at some point, some additional increase in the either leisure and business travel will recover, and it will probably, my perspective will be more at probably at leisure, because if yes, we can travel by car or, well, not necessarily by train in this country, but by car, either by, as opposed to take a flight. But probably for business, if it is really necessary, if it's obviously the signing of a very specific contract or because of the activities that are high people in the touch, right, it will be necessary. But if we can make some business without the necessary to travel, we'll prefer to keep this as we are communicating now. That's my perspective now.
Interesting. I just had a chat come in from one of the participants and said, the beach flights aren't running empty; they're full. People seem to have been ready to get out of
the flight to beaches are not empty.
Yeah, they seem to be ready to get out of the pandemic lockdown and go to the vacation sites.
Yeah,
so,
but that's interesting. That's for vacations, right? But what about for business? We're traveling to keep our business in office or through this way of communication whenever possible. Obviously, there are some trips that I have to make by need. I mean, there's no other options. Yeah, but I can go to Cancun by Zoom, right?
It would be good.
It would be great.
And even to that point specifically, and it's again, there are two things. No, 30 minutes ago, 1 hour ago, I received a call. No, I'm going to have a trip for vacations, fortunately, to one of the top destinations in Mexico next week. And one of the Mexican airlines, they just called me and told me, "Sir, we're gonna change the airplane we were supposed to use for your flight. We're gonna have a smaller one." So that's also one of the things that is happening. And they offer me, "Would you like to change your flight, or would you like to keep on flying with in the same schedule and all that? Although it's gonna be in a smaller plane, I'm gonna keep the same one. So that plane is gonna be packed." I just pulled out some numbers, no? And again, talking about figures. If again, and this data that I'm discussing is based on the latest report from Cicotur, no? For example, and what they were pointing out is, again, between the period of January and April 2021 against 2019, so 2 years ago, there have been half of the flights of the international flights they used to have in 2019, no? And for domestic flights is 30% less flights. So clearly right now also you have to think about the seasons, no? Right now we're in the middle of the summer, so whenever you're thinking about going to the beaches in Mexico, they're going to be packed, No, they're going to be full. If you're talking about hotel occupancy, it's at 80, 90, 95%. No, now that the summer is ending, schools are coming back. No, in Mexico, things are changing. No, and we'll see what will happen in the upcoming months, given the third wave that is happening right now in Mexico.
Well, that leads us into the next question, and I will agree with Daniel in that we are not making as many business trips as we used to.
Yeah.
We're doing a whole lot more communication on these platforms, and we're finding it effective. I will argue that it's not as effective, and we still have to go maybe every other meeting, every third meeting, face to face, because there's nothing like face to face to get a deal done. But it's certainly changed our behavior. Leading into that, Juan, how long do you think the pre-pandemic levels? I know this is a hard one to answer, but how long is it going to take to get back to normal, whatever we're going to call normal? And is it going to be uneven between domestic and international? How do you see that?
So whomever thinks that I have the crystal ball and tell you that I don't, if not, I will play the lotto right now. No, but what is it that's happening? No, I think there are many factors that are impacting tourists. It's not only the pandemic. No, in talking about Mexico, but what happens right now in Mexico also is impacted by this what's happening elsewhere. So I would say that going through different data sources, discussions with industry experts, and really across the board, it seems that talking about 2 to 5 year horizon is something that sounds most possible. Clearly, it's not going to be 2021. 2022, it's going to be hard. Clearly, there's going to be a recovery, just as it has happened between the second and the third wave. No, people start flying again, and because of that, and flying and traveling again, and because of that, new cases arise. No, because things are starting to open and new cases arise. There are new variants. No, from the COVID, and then you have another wave. No, so it's going to take around 2 to 5 years, depending on how the pandemic is being handled, and how the pandemic is being handled in the country of origin of those tourists, and also in Mexico. No, to the question around what will be recovering first or most, domestic versus international. Well, I think that the numbers have shown that domestic is going to be recovering at a faster pace, and that also is because it got less impacted. No, because given how some of the borders got closed, even if people wanted to fly, they couldn't. Although domestic tourism could have happened, we didn't have in Mexico states closing, no, one against the other, as it has happened in other countries. No, so people will tend also, and that's one of the insights that we have from these different research that we have performed with consumers, that clearly there's a pattern, at least temporary pattern, that people prefer to travel domestically, shorter flights, or to locations where they can drive to. No, and that's the type of tourism that has been taking over, no, for the past few months, and they will keep on taking over at a faster pace than any other type of tourism going forward.
So Daniel, what's the kind of off subject a little bit? What's the vaccination percentage in Monterrey, where you're located?
I'm not really sure about the number. I wouldn't like to say any number that I'm not sure about, but it's increasing. It's increasing. I can tell at this point, but yeah, it's increasing.
And what's the behavior like? Are people wearing masks, or are they feeling their freedom? Are they pulling back with the variants?
Yeah, we are for the most part wearing the mask. Here again, all the restaurants are closing earlier. and having less affluency of people allowed to be there. And yes, at least in my consideration, my experience here and in this part of the country, or at least here in Monterrey, in the metropolitan area, people is very conscious about about taking care of themselves. That's what without I can tell. Yeah.
Juan, what are you seeing? What's the behavior like?
I think that the behavior life is very different depending on the socioeconomic levels, no? Depending on the locations, no? Even the geographic locations within a single city, no? So I think, if I may say it, is you have two kind of people. Those are still locked down and can afford to still lock down. Because there's an affordability piece to that, no, given the type of work that they do, given also the income that they have. And there's those that either cannot or do not want, no, to speak loud now. So, but I would say that, at least from my perspective, that I had the opportunity to travel around, not that much, but travel around for the past few months. I've seen that in Mexico now it's getting, people is getting it very seriously, no? So there's much more use of the mask. There's much more respect of social distancing in general. Whenever the Mexican party comes, everything is forgotten for a couple of hours. That's a fact. But the rest of the day, I would say that people have been trying to really comply and stick to the plan, no, that is supposed to help us recover.
I know here on the border, we don't have a lot of mask discipline on the U.S. side of the border, but the minute we cross the border, it is much more disciplined. People are in the factories, full protocol, sanitation. We're all afraid of another setback, another lockdown, another level of pandemic that's damaging to our economy. So everybody's paying attention, and it's good, it's healthy. Let's jump over to what we think how business is embracing technology and where the future of that is currently and post-pandemic. How is technology going to play a part in our business future? Daniel?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I like it. I guess that this pandemic situation has accelerated what we already were trying to make some steps. I mean, trying to use technology for business activities, but we were, I mean, in my perspective, a little bit reluctant to use technology to have this kind of conversations as we are having now, to have business meetings. We would prefer to go to the office of the partner, whatever. And this situation taught us at once that using technology is a way to work, that we can make decisions, that we cooperate, that we can have innovation activities, even though some people say that being face-to-face increases innovation. But even at school, I mean, at teaching, we are finding this a way to deliver classes. And some of the students are preferring to take online classes or face-to-face, but online, presentially, not presentially, but face-to-face, synchronous classes. So yes, to me, at least from the business perspective, using technology or using all these kind of platforms are helping us to make business. Obviously, internet may fail at some point, but that really doesn't is a major issue. It just the facilities, I mean, the platforms are very user friendly. We can easily plug in with, and have a conversation via online, not for leisure, obviously, right?
Do you think you can deliver the passion in your message in a classroom over Zoom versus having the students in front of you?
Well, I would say that will be a question for my students, but if you ask me, I will say yes. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just a little bit of history. I delivered my first online classes or through satellite by that time in the early 2000, right? So it's been about 20 years now that I deliver my first classes through the satellite. I have remote students. I think it's doable. And we'd better get used to this.
I think you're probably right. Juan, what's your take on that? How's this going to end up?
Clearly, there's gonna be a new normal, no? From a business perspective, I think that the key word around this, from my perspective, is willingness to change and change management. No, it's not. Now it's not about if you want or do not want. No, it's when and now. No, so it can be as painful as people that are reluctant to change want to be, but there's going to be a change. No, it depends, of course, a lot on the industry. Also, that's a key thing, no, in terms of from a business perspective. When you're talking about manufacturing, there's no way you can code. No, you have to be in the shop floor. No, unless you have robots that you can control from home, no, from a computer. But those are very little operations that are being able to be handled that way. So you have to be in the shop floor. But for example, in my case, that I'm the services industry, I've been working more than ever. I've been being much more efficient than ever, because within 1 hour or 2 hours, I can be in Brazil. I have been in Brazil, in India, or in the US, and in Mexico. No, and delivering projects. I've been delivering projects in Mexico, in Central America, in South America, working with partners in Europe, and nothing has changed. The thing is how we have adapted ourselves. No, how we're leveraging technology, how we're learning to use technology also, because that's important also, and that's part of the change management piece that I was mentioning. Even, for example, in the classrooms. As Daniel was mentioning, I remember that when I was in my MBA, in the early 2000s, there were already online students, and no one questioned if they were having a good experience. It was just like, okay, they're having their online classes, and that's it. That's the way it is. They cannot be here because they're on the other side of the world. Why is it now? Where would that change? On the contrary, we have already 20 plus years of experience doing that, delivering that. Now it's more about critical mass. And in delivering, just as in a classroom, but just as in a meeting, and this is part of the change management process, following some etiquette. No? If we're in a meeting, let's turn on the cameras. That way we can have that face-to-face contact that would have had on a meeting room. So definitely, if we keep on having or not having some ground rules around how we leverage WhatsApp or instant messaging, even through tools such as Zoom, if we don't turn on the cameras whenever we're in a meeting, and if we're not bringing new technologies like Mural, like any other type of solutions to our day-to-day, clearly it's going to be much more difficult. But if we do it the right way, it helps. I'm seeing and I'm helping organizations rethinking and really challenging the status quo of long-standing practices, and rethinking their go-to-market strategy. For example, as you were saying, Alan, closing a deal, you have to be face-to-face. That's not true. That's not entirely true. In some instances, yes. In some instances, not. No. One, and related to tourism, you have the business, the conventions, that used to happen. That's a major business for tourism, especially, for example, in locations such as, again, Cabo, Mexico City, Monterrey, Cancun. And there are industries that used to have their year-to-year conventions, such as pharma. What are they doing? They're rethinking that. because they're seeing that they can keep on having the same or stronger relationships with the physicians or the healthcare providers without having to take them to Cancun for a weekend. Is it the same? No. Do they have to adapt their go-to-market strategy? Yes. Can they keep on working and generating business? Definitely yes. It's just around adapting ourselves. However, again, and coming back to tourism, business tourism is going to keep on going because there are businesses that require face-to-face operations, that require being on the shop floor, being in the meeting room, for some instances. However, not all of the business meetings need to happen face-to-face, in person.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when we take into account the tourism traffic and economy and the business travel and economy, and taking into account tourism's low season, there's a high season and a low season, where business tends to be a flat season continuously. So Daniel, what's your opinion? Which one's going to recover first? And is it going to be sustainable? And what kind of changes will we see in each of those sectors?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Alan. My consideration is that leisure or tourism will probably tend to have a little bit of faster recovery because, I mean, we need to travel we need to get to know new places. So that's probably, and also in terms of business, as Juan was saying, business that require, to be on the shop floor, right? So, but if we consider that here in Mexico, about 2/3 of the GDP is related to service, there will not really be a need to travel for business as we used to, except when there is no other options. But for tourism, we may be more attempt to travel for leisure issues, right? And I like the question because there is also a possibility, for the tourism industry. I know we are talking about the aerospace industry, but for tourism, there is a good opportunity for cities nearby our home cities, right? Where we can visit them by driving distance. If I'm here located in Monterrey, it's not far. It's about a 5-hour drive to the central part of the country, to San Luis Potosí, for example, which is very nice to visit. So that will open new possibilities for leisure within driving distances, right? If going to Cancun from Monterrey, it's a long way, obviously, but I can go to central Mexico with a reasonable driving distance. So going back to the question, my understanding or my key idea is that probably leisure will be first, will take time, will go first than business.
Interesting. Juan, what are your thoughts? Tourism or business? Who's gonna recover first, the fastest, and sustainable?
I would say leisure tourism, definitely. However, there are new sources of tourism also. Remember that there is, for example, now health tourism that originally was coming from the US to Mexico, for example, for cheaper healthcare. Now it's the other way around. It's Mexicans going to the US to get vaccinated. So maybe that's temporarily, but that's generating lots of inflows and outflows between the two countries and with other regions. There are different challenges, that are beyond the pandemic in Mexico, and also many different opportunities. From a business perspective, one of the reasons why I do foresee that it will take longer is also because even businesses are changing. They're changing their behavior towards the impact in the environment because of social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and that's having an impact also on some of the decisions that they want to have on the environment. So they're lowering down business trips. They were already lowering down business trips. That trend started before the pandemic. The pandemic just accelerated that and made it much more obvious. And now you have two different reasons why. Also, for example, in Mexico, security concerns. There are many organizations in the US that do not, in the US and elsewhere, that do not send their nationals to Mexico because of the warnings that are in some states in Mexico. No? We still have around half of the states that have some type of high level warning. No? And that hinders and limits lots of the business trips that used to happen. No? However, that's from a business perspective. From the tourism perspective, as we were saying, no, people are willing to go out, no matter what, no matter how, no matter where. No, there are some key concerns that they have, starting with affordability, as I mentioned. No, so clearly going abroad, it's going to be much more challenging. So that's a good opportunity to size part of the international tourism that used to happen from Mexicans going abroad is now staying at home. And those nationals, we need to make them come to different poles. No, first of all. Second of all, also people is, as I was mentioning, adapting the way they travel. They're going to closer distances. They're going to smaller locations. They're favoring outdoors. No, and Mexico has many opportunities around that. No, and that's one of the key benefits from thinking about Mexico. No, Mexico, it's a land. No, plenty of opportunities from a tourism perspective. No matter what type of tourism you're talking about, because now even there was a trend around not only talking about leisure and business trips, but also culinary, tourism, healthcare tourism. And Mexico has many of these different types of tourism as an offering, that helps rethink how we want to size those tourists or those foreign tourists that used to go abroad or come to Mexico. Also, as you were mentioning, 80% of the international tourism that is coming to Mexico comes from the US. 80. That's a lot. And the attitude that the people in the US, as you were mentioning, in the US, business and life came back to normal somehow. No, it doesn't matter where you go. If you go to restaurants, it doesn't matter where you go. If you go to the office, clearly there are some constraints and there are some precautions that people are taking. But in general, people don't wear anymore the mask. If you're wearing it, even they'll see you somehow like weird. That's from the past. Now we're thinking about the future. And these tourists are willing to come to Mexico. They can and they're willing to come to Mexico. So that's an opportunity for some specific poles, some specific destinations. There are clear destinations for business trips to Mexico, and there are clear destinations for leisure trips in Mexico, such as Cabos and Cancun. And those locations are gonna keep on recovering and growing as long as the pandemic is being handled the proper way, because the demand exists, I would say.
We have a question came in from the chat. Is what opinion do you have about the construction industry involved in relation to the tourism industry? Daniel, what are your thoughts about that? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it says, what opinion do you have about the construction industry involved in relation to with the tourism industry? Yeah, good question too. Well, my answer will be that, yeah, construction, if we are thinking in construction related to building tourism facilities, yeah, there will be some possibilities because we are saying that leisure will grow, but probably growing is still using the installed capacity, right? In terms of construction industry, I will turn to see new possibilities. If I am in the construction industry, yes, probably linking to the leisure and building hotels and things like that. That could be one possibility, but we'll need to make sure about the installed capacity that we have now. It is full at this point. But I think in terms of in the construction industry for building distribution centers, for example, that opens good possibilities to the construction industry. all the distribution industry, I mean, carriers, and that's also a possibility for the aerospace industry in terms of moving people, moving cargo, right? And also building distribution centers, that's one possibility. Also, being in the construction industry more and beyond that, the tourism and leisure, and if I am following the question correctly, building hotels and things, restaurants and things like that. See how the construction industry in terms of homes and offices will be reconfiguring, right? Because we may not return to offices as we were used to. I mean, I'm in my office right now, but I don't have to be here all the time. So in terms of building homes, in terms of building houses, how the new construction will be, so they have some space for offices within the home, right? Or the current offices, how they will be needed to be reconfigured, rebuilding, so they can accommodate both the office and living space, right? That will be to see differently in the construction industry, how we can serve the industries that are growing, such as distribution centers, for example.
Juan, what do you think about the construction industry in general and as it relates to tourism?
I think that everything related to infrastructure is very much related to more of the government agenda, no? Or at least somehow it's tied. No? I think there are good news in a certain way, meaning that, for example, if I'm not wrong, for 2021, the budget of the tourism ministry in Mexico, Sectur, was multiplied by 7. No, clearly got cut before that. No, from what it was. Still, this year it got multiplied by 7. I don't recall exactly, but I think it's between 80 and 90% of it is going to be dedicated to, for example, Tren Maya, no, in the Yucatan Peninsula. So if your business can be located around helping building everything that is going to be around Tren Maya, there's business. There's going to be good business, no, going forward. Also, for example, your business, it's what I would say is construction is very much related to these growth poles, no? So what are the growth poles? The Peninsula Maya, the Mayan Peninsula, sorry, related to, for example, the Mayan train, no? That is going to be built, and there are many opportunities for large, small, and very small companies, no, that can be part of that process. There are opportunities also for nascent hubs, such as Nayarit. No, Nayarit is taking a boom, an investment from the federal government, and there are hotel chains that are just opening new hotels. So there are opportunities around there. No, would it be the same in other places? No, clearly not. There's going to be an impact. So it will depend exactly on which part of the value chain you're involved in, and your flexibility to address the demand where the demand is going to be going forward.
Well, I want to remind everybody, based on everything that you're saying, is that for every problem, every chaos, there's opportunity. So there's opportunities in each of these sectors that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we have to dig for them and search for them, but that's what exemplifies the great entrepreneurship of Mexico.
Exactly. And it got impacted just as like anywhere else, no? The construction, like for example, right now in Mexico City, there's a surplus of square meters, but really a surplus versus the demand. And this is not getting better, because now either there are some companies that cannot keep on paying the rent, so they're letting their square meters go, or they're not willing to. No, they're changing completely the working scheme, adopting new ways of working, as we mentioned, and that is impacting day-to-day, let's say, construction business, but also some of the construction business related to tourism.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about this next question is how, in every industry is different, I know, but let's pick a couple of examples. How have industry players had to innovate, reimagine their business? And I know we've all done it. The models, the value proposed to stay relevant or adapt to new business, both in business and tourism. So Daniel, how do you see the adaptation?
Yeah, well, this adaptation has to happen almost immediately, if I am allowed to say it this way, if we wanted to continue with the business operations. So for example, if you take whatever examples you want, the question was, how can I get closer to our customers, right? Instead of the customers coming to my shop floor, supermarket, or even hospitals. Technology has helped us to be closer to our customers. Pretty simple example, think of supermarkets. Most of them have deliveries, right? So you shop online, you make your shopping list online, and then you have a carrier, and that's a business opportunities, for carriers. I can, buy a small pickup and make my own business in delivery, which has been the case in some situations, right? And also, and I mentioned for the health industry, obviously, this hard is for anyone, but if you have to be in hospital because, well, but telemedicine, some physicians have been making a consultation by online, right? And with all the fees and the necessary, but yeah, the technology has helped us reimagine the business. Probably back some months ago, it was very difficult for a medical consultation whenever it is possible for first time consultation and things like that. We used to go to the doctor's office. Now we can do this online whenever it's possible, right? And also, as I was mentioning, we used to go to to restaurants. Now we can do that with some all the warnings and things like that. But you can go. But some of them have made reimagine and reassemble the foods and the meals to deliver them at home, right? So yeah, even for the education, right? We are delivering our classes. Now we are moving to more hybrid models. But at the very beginning, we reconfigured the way we deliver classes online. Yeah.
Just a side note, classes online. I remember at the university, such a wonderful part of it was being with other students.
Oh, yeah.
New friends, and the sessions of dreaming and brainstorming and flipping through magazines and imagining our future. How's that going to happen when everybody's at home?
Yeah, obviously our students really, specifically probably for undergrad students, they really want to be in campus. Graduate students obviously do want to be in campus, but and we are, taking with all the warnings and precautions and things like that, cautions and things like that. We are trying to do some hybrid models. Fortunately, here in Mexico, that industry. Education and industry was considered an essential industry, right? So this allows us to deliver classes, and we are doing this because obviously it's a combination. Students really want to have the contact and be here, and we are allowing them. If you ask me, our classrooms have been set to one third of their normal capacity at the most.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Juan, how do you see businesses adapting and evolving with this? And where are we going?
Businesses adapting, businesses in the industry, within the industry, clearly how they have adapted, they accelerated their digital transformation.
Yeah.
That's, I would say, one of the main changes. How to, and for different reasons. One reason is to be much more efficient. Given right now you have margin pressure, due to the lack of demand, and that requires for organizations to be much more resilient from a financial perspective. So investing in technology is helping to be much more cost effective in some of the operations and reduce the cost to serve. Second is trying to to provide a much more digital experience, or let's say from a social distancing perspective, how may accelerate web check-in, so you don't have to go through the lobby, and you can just go directly to your room, and that way you don't have, again, to expose yourself. So that way they're like taking a shortcut to address the pandemic challenge, very short term from that end. And also, I think, and this is one much more relevant strategic, is being more relevant to the tourist. Because right now what you want is to make sure right now, one of the key things that organizations are doing is going after those loyal customers, those constant tourists, and what they want to do is to make them come to their hotels, to take their airlines, to take their buses, to take their activities.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I do that? Becoming much more relevant throughout their journey. So that's leveraging technology to be, whenever that tourist is trying to identify what are the different opportunities that for leisure purposes, where they should stay, being there during that selection process, while being at the hotel or taking the flight, is providing a very seamless wow experience some way, very digital. And after the tourist interacted with the organization, maintain that relevance so they can really spread the word. That's becoming a key thing going forward, providing this omni-channel experience throughout the journey. I would say another thing that some companies are doing is thinking about either somehow vertical integration or expanding into adjacent businesses. Not only providing, of course, hospitality services, but also becoming a service provider to other smaller hotels, for example, because I have larger capacity, I can build on synergies, scale, and provide a much more cost-efficient, better quality service to smaller hotels, just to give an idea. Right now, when they're thinking about, for example, the experience with airlines, the airlines are trying to find also new revenues, new sources of revenue, just to try to at least overcome on a temporary basis the lack of income from the normal base of tourists. So clearly there are, as you were saying, whenever there are challenges, it's also the land of opportunities. And there are many organizations that are thinking in a different way how they were doing their business, their operating model, being much more digital, addressing and tapping into new white spaces, either market segments, for example, also expanding their customer base, going to the base of the pyramid with new brands or digitally based offerings. So clearly, it's an industry that has been hit directly, if not the most hit by the pandemic, at least is one of the most. But also it's proving to be an industry and all of its value chain to be a very resilient industry, trying to figure out different alternatives to maintain the relevance to the eyes of the tourist. It doesn't matter if it's for businesses or for leisure purposes.
Awesome. All right, we are running out of time. I would like us to wrap up. Daniel, your closing comments.
Yeah, I will take your idea and also Juan's comment that every situation opens possibilities, and to see these pandemics as a business, as an opportunity for business to reconfigure. If we are in the airline industry and we are focusing here our conversation on leisure and business, well, within business, what opportunities are being open? I would say that for carriers, right, that would be a good possibility to explore. And to learn and to learn from this situation. That would be my comment. So one can go with his.
On your closing comments.
Closing comments from my side is that in thinking more of Mexico as a destination, Mexico has gone through many different crises for many different reasons. And despite all of that, Mexico has been maintained from a leisure perspective as a pole of attraction. It's a country that people like to come. They like to really have a good time in Mexico because of its history, because of its culinary offering, because of the beaches and all of the landscapes that we have. So we really address the needs of tourists of all kinds. From a business perspective, it's a country also that it's still offering many different opportunities, given its closeness to the US and many other things, no? Many of the commercial treaties or agreements that we have. So clearly right now, we're facing a major challenge. We're facing a crisis, but I would say that those are confident and invest during the time of crisis and are resilient are the ones that are going to be the successful ones a few months from now, a few years from now.
If I can close as a commercial for Mexico. I've been doing business in Mexico for 40 years, 35 years in my current company. And in this time, I have never seen the opportunities abound in Mexico that are existing right now. The global realignment, and that's from tourism travel to business opportunities for Mexican entrepreneurs, for foreign investment into Mexico. There's never been a time like there is right now. So it's time to seize the moment. For all of the listeners out there, listening to these gentlemen with their thoughts on the current situation and the future of tourism and business, I encourage you to engage. It's really a wonderful time for Mexico. These opportunities are abound. We can hope for the best with the pandemic and get it behind us as we move forward. Let's be safe. It's still with us, and we don't want to take a back step and end up with a lockdown as we did before. So all of you out there, thank you. Thank you, Mexico Now. And I wish you all a great day.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you very much.